Welcome to Inside the Mind. I'm Catie Staszak, and I am not your typical host, but no fear, I do have your host with me, Annette Paterakis. And of course, you know her as the Equestrian Mindset Coach. But today we're going to reverse the roles a little bit. And of course, as Annette talks to some of the most elite athletes in our sport, dives deeper into their mindset, what makes them tick, and the kind of struggles and things that you do have to overcome as an equestrian athlete competing at the top levels of the sport. There's a whole dynamic that has led her on this journey, and today we're going to explore that and turn the interview on her. And I'm going to do my best to try to bring out some of her journey today. Annette, you have gotten to explore and speak with and share the journeys of so many athletes in our sport. But there was a journey that led you to this point, and it's certainly a unique role and niche that you have found yourself in this sport.
True.
First and foremost, what inspired you to go on that journey?
First of all, thank you, Catie. What inspired me to start on this journey? It started from a deep frustration that I see in the riders that I work with. And yeah, I was in the sport myself as a rider. And incredibly ambitious, driven, competitive, and at the same time very perfectionistic, setting the bar very high, and just finding myself often frustrated with myself mostly, knowing that I could do a lot better, but it's not coming out, not nearly as much as I wanted. I had very inconsistent results. Sometimes I would just, rise to the occasion and have amazing results, but then the next weekend it would just completely, different story, and I would mess up and be eliminated. And it was a real emotional roller coaster on many levels. And at some point I just felt so, I really felt like there has to be another way. And I felt really so frustrated because I wanted to do better. And after another really disappointing show, I came home, I was done, I'm going to quit. But then you start thinking, it's like, well, if I really suck that much, how come sometimes I can do it? Right? And it just got me thinking about, is it really talent that's holding me back, or is it something else? And really that unique moment, I still picture it. I can still really vividly remember that moment in my bedroom where, yeah, you just feel like really emotional, but you have that kind of insight and you say, you know what, let me explore this. And that's really, for me, that was a pivotal moment because it started my curiosity into the mind, but in the beginning I didn't know if it was my mind, what was going on, but it just started me on this journey of let me explore, let me find out how I can become more consistent, how I can bring out my potential, right? So yeah, that's where it started, and it led me to read books about self-development, study applied psychology, and just get more and more curious, get more answers, but then also more questions. And I guess I've never stopped asking questions. And that's why I do Inside the Mind, because I really find it so inspiring to learn more. And that drives me, right? Whatever I learn on my own personal journey through these interviews, I love to share that. So yeah, I guess I've continued to ask myself, like, what does it take to be successful, to bring out your potential? And that was first of all for myself.
Right.
And bit by bit, because I was still riding full time at the time. I was studying remotely so I could ride. And I just thought, well, I'm just going to be a writer and that's what I do. But I was studying applied psychology just to have a diploma. And at some point realizing, well, actually, I really enjoy this a lot. what if I start sharing what I've learned with other riders, and who knows, perhaps maybe help, even if I just help one rider, right? It would have been worth it. So that was in 2012 where I decided to start as a mindset coach, and I've never looked back. I love it. Yeah, it keeps me in the sport that I love so much, and I get to continue to grow, like I said, and learn and serve others.
That's incredibly relatable for me as well, kind of working within the sport, but maybe not necessarily, riding professionally. And clearly what you were studying, it worked. It did show you that there was this whole mental aspect that was playing a big role. Was there a turning point within your studies that you realized, okay, I've unlocked something that can change my performance in the ring?
Right. Funnily enough, I don't think it was really in the studies per se. It was actually my experience working with a mental coach myself. So I've done the work over the years, and I still do. I still have 3 coaches myself.
Wow.
And because I just know the power of having a coach by your side, and we all have blind spots, right? And I love to grow. I love to keep chasing goals, just in a different domain. But having a coach behind me, with me, educating me, that was really a pivotal moment. And for the first time, I just felt like, there's nothing wrong with me,
right?
Because until that point, you feel like you're the only one, and what's wrong with me, and I need to fix this. And then when you have somebody that kind of sits with you and says, look, I got your back, and, you're good. Like, this is what's happening in your nervous system. And this is what we can do about it. And let's, just one step at a time. So the work I did with my very first coach, because that was really for, at the time, my writing, it's still stuff I use today. So for example, Heart Math Institute is an incredible institute that researches, but also is created biofeedback, where you can kind of measure your coherence. And coherence is a really beautiful, you hear it more and more nowadays, but it's a beautiful way to really measure, in a way, flow, right? If you're in coherence in your nervous system, you're a lot more likely to get into a flow state in the ring. Let me just put it that way.
Okay.
Very shortcut, but that's what it comes down to. And so, I think that was a pivotal moment for me. Like I said, with more answers also came more questions. So I felt like, okay, I'm nearly there, but it's not it yet.
Yeah.
Okay, let me explore the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And that's kind of like, I'm still on that journey.
Which is so parallel with the sport as a whole, because you're always learning and uncovering something else.
Yes.
And when riders are coming to you, do you find a lot of them are coming to you for the same reason, or do you find maybe that there's something else that you kind of are uncovering along the way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in the beginning of my career, I had a lot of riders that came to me with, feeling very nervous and wanting to work through that and overcome that. And I think what's interesting is where I am in my journey is also reflected in who I coach and the problems, of the people that what they bring to me. And so in the beginning, it was very much around nervousness and feeling insecure. I would say that's really transitioned now to a lot of riders I work with. They are already very successful. They're doing very well. And their question is mostly around, how can I really tap into my potential more?
Right.
How can I, be more consistent? So that is really something that they come to me with. And a lot of them have very ambitious goals, and they basically want me to guide them on that journey towards their goals.
And this sport obviously is so incredibly unique and, would maybe lend itself more toward another individual sport like tennis or something like that, not having necessarily a team. It's a different kind of team. But what would you say is unique about our sport when it comes to mental strength and having that correct state of mind to be successful?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are 3 things that really stand out for this particular sport that really impact, that really, I think, play a role. First of all, the fact that men and women compete against each other. Maybe a topic that is not that often mentioned, but men and women have a lot in common, but we also have differences.
Sure.
Right? And over the years, and also from my own experience, knowing that what works for men doesn't necessarily have to work for women.
Sure.
And I think that is one that, especially also as a woman, that's something that I think is quite important for us to talk more openly about. That I don't think we should, I don't like to have the conversation about, are we equal or not? I think we absolutely are. And I believe we have different strengths, right?
And we can be equal, but still have differences.
Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly. And I believe that in the future, we're going to explore more as women, like what actually works for us.
Yeah.
Not for our male trainers, but for us. So that's one. I think obviously also the fact that we work with a living being and one that we can't communicate with through words, right? And we have to communicate in a different way. Now, I think that's the most unique part of our sport is that, and it's also the most beautiful part.
Yes.
I think that is also the part that we learn the most about ourselves, because we can't communicate through words and we have to find another way. And that is why it's so important to have that not only mindset, but more like awareness of yourself.
Yeah.
Now, what I've learned on this journey is that you can only connect with a horse at the level that you're willing to connect with yourself. And if you're trying to find answers in your horses, in the external world, in your equipment, in your training, but you're not really looking at yourself, that's often where actually the most growth will come from.
Sure.
When you're willing to look inward. So I believe that the horse gives us that unique opportunity to do so. And it often forces us to do so, like the horses did for me in a way.
Yeah.
Because they just give you honest feedback of who you're being in the moment. Yeah. That's what they do. That's their mirror, right? In that way.
Right. I remember listening to that from your interview with Daniel Blumen, and he said the horse is a mirror, and I relate so much to that.
Yeah.
And I also think when you talk about mental strength, you think strength is tough.
Yes.
But what is mental strength really, and what have you learned about what that really entails?
Yeah, that's a great point. So indeed, the first thing that comes to mind, strength, is, indeed like force and,
muscle
and struggle. But what I've noticed, that real strength lies in vulnerability. And the more vulnerable we're willing to be with ourselves first, to really honor the parts of ourselves that we don't like, that we get to actually sit with that and feel that instead of denying it and judging it, I think that is so important. And I think that's also why I'm doing these interviews, for example, because I wanted to show that side of the riders, the person behind the rider. Because when hopefully we see that part of those elite top riders, we give ourselves permission to do the same.
Yeah.
Because we're all just humans. We're all people having the same issues, having the same insecurities, having the same doubts. So for me, being open to explore that, to be vulnerable with it, to face it, And with that, to say, I'm going to own who I really am, that to me is real power. And I think that those riders who have been through that journey in their unique way, they're the ones that when you dare to stick with that and don't distract yourself with all kinds of stuff, but really go through that, you come out the other side a different person.
Right.
Yeah.
And those athletes, they're so often our heroes and role models, and they can seem like these far away, distant beings, or I'm not at that level. I don't have what they have, but that's that relatability, which can give you just so much more confidence in yourself. And I think also with social media, we're all posting all these highlights. And so if you're struggling, you're kind of in this hole and you're seeing everyone else doing so well, everything's going perfect, right? And they're achieving all of these things. Do you find that people are coming to you maybe more with that kind of seeing everything else seemingly so perfect? We're not really showing that imperfect side of ourselves.
Sometimes, sometimes comparing yourself is definitely a theme.
Yeah, in this sport a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think generally, indeed, so with social media and in any walk of life, it's inevitable that it's easier to compare, but it's not always a fair image of reality. I think that's where, again, training that, like also not just the mindset, but the ability to go inward and to focus on you, not in a selfish way, but more in a way of what do I have control over, right? So when we start to ask questions, when we get curious, social media will always be there. But what we do with it, and also generally what we do in life, we can be at the show on our phone, or we can be at the show and actually ask that rider a question and learn
so many of them would be happy to answer.
Absolutely. That's how it started for me, because for my book Winning Habits, I interviewed 14 of the top riders. Wow. And I started off and I was so nervous. I've been looking up to these riders for years. I was like, I don't know how this is going to go, but here we go. I just want to learn. And I was amazed with how human they were, how open they were, how vulnerable they were, how they just shared everything. And I was really amazed. I don't know how else to describe it. So I felt like, I need to continue with this, but on camera so people can see it for themselves, because now in the book it was described through me, but I wanted to capture it. And it helped me so much to realize, if we look at it from an art, excellence, elite performance, peak performance is an art. And when you start to look at what are the patterns that all these riders have in common, and you get curious, it just gets so interesting. Yeah.
I feel like it's a little bit similar in this sport. Everyone's always saying, watch the schooling area, watch the warm-up and see what you learn, see what these athletes are doing. It's not just about the ring. I think you could say the same thing about these interviews, because you're watching and learning how they're preparing mentally, what's going on behind the scenes. What do you think would maybe surprise most people when it comes to mental skills, mental strength coaching, training the mindset?
Yeah. I think what surprises people the most, especially when they come to work with me, everybody works differently. I used to offer tools, checklists, to-dos, right? And what I learned over time is that you can have all the tools in the world, but if you're coming from a place of I'm not enough, or you're identifying with feeling small, right? You can have all those tools, they're not going to work. So if your survival brain is behind the wheel in that moment and you're using your breathing technique, it can help to some extent, but you're not going to create consistent rounds and not like consistency in you riding at your best. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
And so I think what surprises potentially people working with me is that I actually don't give them advice. I don't give them tools. We actually work on the level of identity. And I coach them to be their own coach in a way, to observe themselves, not just at the end of the day or at the end of the show, but in the moment to moment, constantly noticing which part of myself is in charge right now. Is fear driving me, or is trust is driving me, right? To kind of simplify it.
Right.
And it's a very simple concept. It's just not always easy, right? And so when we master that awareness, everything else falls into place. We don't have to do so much. We don't have to fix anything, because we are not broken. The people that come to me, even in the most, situations where they feel completely like, I'm so lost.
Yeah.
There is nothing wrong with them. We're all whole already inside. And it sounds maybe very etheric, I don't know, but it's true. And all we need to do is really reconnect with that part of us. And in order to do that, it starts with awareness. Okay. And so training that awareness is where I come in. And helping them realize, if you want that life in which you are thriving, and that's not just results in the ring, right? That's everything, right? A life that you feel proud of, that you're like excited about, that you can't wait to step into. You first have to show up being that person.
Right.
So a lot of riders believe that if I get more confident, the results will show up, right?
Right.
But we first have to learn to be that rider who creates those results.
Right.
And the confidence results will flow to you. It kind of, we need to turn it around. Yeah. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I always was the kind of the person that said, before you can love someone else, you have to love yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think it would be similar in an athletic mindset.
Yeah.
Now, riders, we are athletes. They're talking about athletes going to the gym, doing things outside of the barn. Would you say that there's also a need to exercise the brain or your mental strength, and what can athletes do to incorporate that into their routine?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, the answer is yes. However, training the brain looks very different. So, for example, I was doing an academy session earlier today, and one of the members asked, I'm at the Sunshine Tour right now. I've got 8 horses. I'm showing from 6 in the morning, 6 in the evening. I'm busy. And I find myself mid-course thinking ahead, right? Thinking about the outcome, like, I'm still clear. I'm going to be clear. And then lo and behold, I have one down, right? And her question was like, how do I deal with that? So I said, okay, where else in life are you 3 steps ahead? Are you thinking ahead of what you still need to do in the future? And she's like, well, everywhere, all the time. I said, well, that is what you're training, right? So in order to train the brain, we actually need to learn to not do more, but to actually do less. Meaning,
what a concept.
That's
hard.
I know, especially for high achiever equestrians. Yeah, I'm not very popular in that regard. However, learning to realize that effort is not like directly correlated to achievement and performance is a very novel concept for many of the people I work with, and it was for me, and it still is something that you want to keep becoming aware of. And what that means is, I often tell people that come to me, it's like, you are working really hard already. You're very good at working hard. Yeah. Being uncomfortable is for you, you know what it's like to be uncomfortable and working hard. However, if you want to get to the next level, it's not about working harder to get there. You've tried that already, right? And they're all like, yes, I have, and it's not working. And that's because to get to that level, to create results that are almost like irrational, that don't make sense, right? Like, you know, some of my clients like Luis Larrazabal, you know, some of his results, he's so consistent. Some of these results, they don't make sense in the sense of, you know, this is how you should progress. Sometimes you can skip timelines.
Right.
And we can do that when we actually really align with ourselves. And in order to do that, we got to slow down.
That can be hard.
Yes.
Easier said than done.
Yes.
What do you wish more riders would kind of trust or release or rethink when it comes to their mental strength?
Well, that mental strength doesn't reside up here. It resides here. And the first step when we slow down is that we can connect with our body, with feeling. And when we ride our best rounds, we're connected, right? We don't ride from here, from thinking real hard or doing a lot or remembering the course. No, we ride from
Feel.
Yeah. And that resides a lot lower.
Yeah.
So it's the training is to learn to get out of your head. But in order to do that, you first have to realize that's where you're living.
Right.
Because if you don't realize that, it's obviously not something you can change. So awareness is so underrated. A lot of people want to do a lot. Well, actually, you have to do less and just observe. And the same concept goes with our horses, right? We want to do so much. Usually, less is more. But observing more is that's where the shift happens. When you observe from curiosity, not judgment. And leadership and horsemanship, they're the same thing. So what applies for the horses applies for us too. And that's the beauty of it.
Right.
When we start to apply that leadership towards ourselves, to treat ourselves from love, not from criticism.
Yeah.
And to not do that because it should be done, but to realize that that is strength, that is power. And when we really get to connect with ourselves, all the parts of ourselves, not the parts only that we like, but the good, bad, and the ugly, that's where the magic happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You've kind of set out with this goal of impacting 1 million lives.
Yes.
And that's a big number.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that journey and what maybe the next steps are for you in that goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's my, part high achiever me. And part also feeling guided on this journey, I would say. Yeah. So when I connect with my higher self, I very much feel guided in the sense that I believe that everything happens for a reason, that I am here for a certain purpose, and helping riders connect deeply with themselves, and from that place more deeply with their horses, so the horses have the chance to do the same.
Right. That's
why I'm here. And for me to put a number on it, that's also what I do with my clients. We really, the moment you set goals and you have numbers, it helps actually to guide you towards something. If I don't know where I'm going, how am I going to reach it? Right? So becoming very specific is very helpful. Writing it down is very helpful. So when I was in 2024, my mom had just passed away. And I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I was doing a meditation and I felt like, maybe I'd been, in terms of work, getting a little comfortable for a little while, in the sense that, I felt like I was ready for the next push to push myself to serve at a different scale. So I've been doing one-to-one coaching for by that stage, I think 10 years.
Sure.
And it was going great. And I could, easily keep doing that, just maximum 10 clients, focus on that. But something was just, I don't know, it was telling me like, Annette, you're here for more. And that is just to serve more riders and also more horses. Because I believe it has a ripple effect, right? If I can touch one rider and they connect deeply with themselves And from that place can now actually hear and listen to the horse at a very different level.
Yep.
Now imagine the horses, the amount of horses that one rider is going to ride in his lifetime, right?
Exactly.
So that concept really spoke to me, and I felt inspired to follow that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have no idea how, but that's what the rational brain wants to do, just straight away know how am I going to get there. And I thought, I'm just going to trust the universe and just take it one step at a time and start with what I do know. And yeah, step by step, I started an academy. We've got now over 30 people in that academy.
Wow.
And amazing riders amazing people, I should say, that are incredibly driven, hungry, but also vulnerable, open, coachable, and most importantly, very supportive towards each other. And yeah, like I'm very proud of that.
You should be.
Yeah, thank you.
And you brought it in when you said the horses as well, because surely they play the biggest part in this, and that are at the heart of everything that we're doing in this.
Yes, and they so deserve it.
And what role do horses continue to play for you?
I feel like that's such a great question. I feel like that continues to evolve.
Yeah.
There is something that's telling me I'm going to be more closely involved with horses soon. Again, no idea how or what that exactly means, but having done this work for myself for many years and having been out of the sport in a certain way.
Sure.
I mean, I'm still in the sport, but definitely not in the same way as I used to be. It's given me an opportunity to really see things differently. I was so, as a rider, I saw the horse in a certain way, right? And I see that now in all the riders I speak with. But on this journey, I've explored many different things. I've read a lot about horsemanship and just really opening up to seeing the horse in a very different way. And I guess it's just opened my mind completely to how in tune horses are, how much they can understand, and how simple it is actually for us to connect. All we need to do is really, really be there.
Right.
And really tune in and listen.
Be present.
Be so present that it's just there. And that's what I think what's stood out the most of the interviews I've done is these riders that succeeded have really learned that. Yeah. They've realized the importance of not just like, I'm here as a rider and the horse is here and I need to just tell the horse what to do.
Right.
I feel like there is a certain sense of teamwork, of doing it together, of trust. And it's a relationship they've built and created. And it comes from a deep respect for the horse and realizing that the horse doesn't owe us anything, right?
No, what they do for us is unreal. It's incredible.
It is. And I know a lot of riders resonate with that.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of riders realize that. And the moment they get to the barn, our drive, our ambition can sometimes distract us from that.
Sure.
Right? And that is not right or wrong. Right. We don't need to judge that. No. I think it's very understandable. I was exactly in that place myself. And that's why I guess I can see it. Right?
Sure.
But I think, if we realize to just really come back to that principle, results will flow from there. So what does that mean for me? My answer is I don't know. I don't really know. What I do know is I feel more and more that I would love to have horses in my life again.
Yeah. And isn't that the beauty of this sport is that it's always there and there is not necessarily a timeline. Everyone has their own timeline that looks so different.
Yeah. it is really interesting. And I was doing a meditation myself very recently last week, and it was a new type of meditation that I've been taught by a new coach.
Wow.
And it was basically a heart meditation. And the idea was to kind of put your heart, or imagine that you put your heart in your child or your spouse's hands. And it really teaches you a lot about how much do I trust?
Yeah.
Right? And what comes up for me when I do that. And it just to kind of observe that. That was the exercise.
Wow.
And I found myself suddenly thinking, I wonder if I can do that with a horse.
Yeah.
And like one of my horses that I really connected with when I was still riding, she came up in my mind. And boy, like so much emotion came up suddenly and so much realization. And it was very uncomfortable and also very beautiful.
Oh, and I'm sure with everything that you've learned in that time, probably just gives you such a greater understanding of all of
Definitely. Yeah, it just, every time it's a new layer.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this work for over 20 years and it just doesn't stop. Like there is always a new layer. And as a result, it's very likely, very possible that horses, I don't know, maybe even this year might show up in my life and there I am doing something different. Who knows? I'm just open to it all. I don't feel the need anymore to control my life so much.
Yeah.
And that has shifted because I've done the work.
Yeah. And I would say pretty strongly that horses they're already here. Yeah. They're very much still, they are very much still at the heart of your life and what you're doing.
Yes, they are. And I guess before I really wanted to always be liked by the horse and respected and accepted by the horse. And the funny thing is now that I found that in myself, I was stood by a horse and there was so much connection. I don't even know the horse, but it was so beautiful, And I did a photo shoot in Ibiza a few months ago, and the same thing. It was incredible what they're willing to do. You don't need to know them. Yeah. All you need to do is get to know yourself. Yeah. It's magic.
Sure is. Yeah. Now, for someone who is an athlete that wants to explore how they can improve their mental skill set, their mindset, what's the first step?
Curiosity. It doesn't matter where you start. Maybe it's just with a question. You're like, you know what? Like, I'm so done with this. I want to figure this out. That's where I started. And that is amazing. When you feel that in your body, that's the first step. And that's the most important one. So wherever you are, if it's by picking up a book, I have a lot of people that have read Winning Habits and said, wow, I really resonate with this. And this really speaks to me, and then reach out to me. It's reading. It can be learning from self-development trainings or coaches. It could be saying, look, I really want to work with Annette. I've got my academy that I welcome those who are ready to do the work. Not everybody's ready, and that's fine. Everybody's in a different stage of their career and also in this development. But whoever feels really compelled to work with someone, and that doesn't need to be me, just explore it. Follow your heart. Get out of your head and dare to follow your gut, because your gut is already telling you what you need.
I think a lot of people, especially athletes in this sport, would be pretty glad that you decided to do that. And, I know you spoke about, being vulnerable, and we've seen so many through Inside the Mind, so many athletes be vulnerable. But thank you for also having the presence to be vulnerable yourself and to talk with me. I'm always learning so much from you myself. So what a pleasure.
Thank you. I really appreciate you being here and your presence and your questions. I just enjoyed this conversation so much. Thank you.
Likewise.